Welcome everybody to a new analysis of Tradomics. My name is Dario, and in this episode we're going to have a focus on the 8 main Swiss stocks belonging to the SMI 20. As usual, this is an episode that I update on a regular basis every month. So if you're interested in following the Swiss stocks, well, first of all, I suggest you to subscribe to the channel so that every month you will be notified about the trend that the companies are following by using our T-cycle analysis, a quantitative method that can statistically predict how long the price can follow a certain pathway. So let's get it started, and we start with pharmaceutical companies, namely Roche. In the last episode I issued roughly a month ago, here we were expecting basically a push to the upside, given that from this top, we had a positive upward cycle, and this positive upward cycle was a T plus 2. A T plus 2, T stands for Tracy point, T plus 2 means that it's a monthly cycle, and the monthly cycle has a duration between 24 up to 44 days. So if now we gauge the total duration from this top here, in which we identify the beginning of a T plus 2 until this candle here, that was yesterday candle, we have a 44 bar. So basically we have in the maximum duration of the maximum let's say period in which a T plus 2 can be developed. This means that starting from next week, we have to see a bit of a retracement in order to develop a new cycle. We don't know yet whether this will be a T plus 2 or a T plus 1, depends here on the volumetric tendency. But in generally speaking, after the closing of a cycle T plus 2, we can foresee another T plus 2. Okay, so the beginning of next week will start a little bit with the retracement. This retracement also will be important because we have also to look at the other flip of the coin, the downward cycles. So in terms of downward cycle from this low here, we have reached 35 bars. And the retracement that we are expecting next week, highly probable, given that we have already wear out all the time for a T plus 2. So we might eventually begin the next week with potentially another top, but in that case, we have to consider a T plus 2 hybrid cycle. This retracement will be also healthy to eventually close a downward cycle T plus 2. So in order to complete the tail of this cycle T plus 2 that can have this shape, we have the entire next week. So the key message here is that for the beginning of next week, be careful because we might have a bit of retracement. But also the second key message is that apart this arrow that I left during the last video, so analysis correct, and also this arrow analysis correct, the most important thing is that the price has returned over this top at 312 Swiss francs. What does it mean? It means something really important if you are mid-term investors or even a short-term investor or a trader. It means that from this top, we have identified a T plus 5. A T plus 5 is a nearly upward cycle that can last between 189 up to 339 days. And given that we have the condition in which with this candle, with yesterday's candle, Thursday, 13th of February 2025, we went over the stop. The duration that it's in between is 139 days. So, as the golden rule of the cycle analysis, whenever there is a cycle, in this case a T plus 5, that has a duration between 189, the minimum duration, and maximum duration, 359 days, and turns into a positive one because the candle from which it started was broken up with this candle and the time is not enough to have the completion of a T plus 5, we can expect that the future direction of the price will be exactly in the same direction that the top will has been broken. This means that, in few words, we can continue to go up, so we can continue to proceed further the rally of the price until at least 189 bars. So the price of Roche is forecast to continue is focused to continuing going up until at least 29 of April. Okay, so this will be the minimum duration in which we can forecast that the price will continue to go up. Okay, so here we go, until basically beginning of May. But the price can keep rising even beyond that date. So if we consider a median duration, and the median duration of a T plus 5 is around 250, 260 days, then Roche's price can go, let's say, can keep rallying and go higher and higher until August 2025. So this is the power of the quantitative analysis. We measure time. We have a methodology that is able to predict how long the price can follow the pathway, in this case, to the uptrend. Are there any risk in between? Yes. Risk of retracement, I would say, because before continuing the rally, we can have a retracement. Here I talked about short-term retracement, but given that we have already 137 bars, from this top here, we might have the beginning of something that is even more than a T plus 2. And if we have a T plus 3 or a T plus 4, the retracement will last at least for 1 or even 2 weeks. So from now onwards, you have to be careful if you want to buy long positions at this particular price or at this particular level, because we can expect next week, but even if in the two next weeks, to have a retracement, and this retracement we allowed to have a T plus 2 or a T plus 3 or T plus 4. So this is the risk. We will continue to go up subsequently, but over the shorter term, be careful to this condition, okay? In the meantime, I can remove here the question mark, because from this low here, we have definitely the beginning of a cycle that is at least a T plus 3, but it might be even more T plus 3 or T plus 4. Okay, so let's move to the competitor one, which is Novartis. If we look at Novartis, we see immediately that there is less strength compared to Roche, because this top here is not higher compared to this one. And this one, we have the beginning of an T plus 5 yearly upward cycle. So this is the first difference. The second difference is that on Novartis, we have started this downward cycle. So we have started to build the tail of the downward cycle here. So as for Roche here, we have at least the beginning of a T plus 3 months cycle. But you see that in this case here, we have more candles that are lower the stop, and they are completely basically the tail. Now, the thing is that how long or how much time do we have here? If we gauge the total duration, we have 33 bars. So basically, we know that a T plus 2 cycle that is embedded in a T plus 3 cycle following the Matryoshka effect can last until 44 bars. So we have at least another week to complete the tail. Okay, so we don't know whether we will further retrace until the moving average 200, or this it's already the swing in which we will have the beginning of a T plus 2. Therefore, next week, in order to understand whether we will continue to further go down or we will have a bounce back to the upside, we will have to monitor this low. Okay, so this low at 96 Swiss francs is our checkpoint to better understand whether we will continue to proceed to the downside or whether we will have a bounce back to the upside. Um, we have also to take in consideration that from this top here, we have for the time being a T+1, but as said also for Roche, we might have the beginning of something that is a wider cycle, not just a biweekly cycle, but here potentially we have the sufficient condition to have a T+4 even. And if from this top we have a T+4, namely 6-month cycle, we need a certain amount of time or candles below the stop in order to develop the cycle itself. Okay, so we have to be careful as for Roche for next week because we might expect a little bit more downtrend or a steady state situation. In terms of probability, this pathway has a higher likelihood compared to the bounce back to the upside. Despite here we have already median duration, because if from this top we have a T+2 or T+3, we still need more time to have a bunch of candles that are below this top. Okay, so as for Roche, the forecast for next week is that we need to carefully watch this low and we might potentially have a further downtrend. Eventually, the first big resistance will be the moving average 200. Given that this is a dynamic support, we might have, let's say, the support around 95 Swiss francs. Okay. The second thing that is important to flag up here on Novartis is that given that the stop is lower compared to this top, here we don't have a positive yearly upward cycle. Therefore, we are not obliged to continue proceed to the upside. Okay, because this cycle is not a positive one. Therefore, so positive means that we don't have a candle before the minimum duration that has broken up the candle from which the cycle started. So therefore, we are not obliged to follow the pathway to the upside. Okay, so that's it as the important difference compared to Roche. So be careful for next week. We might have a little bit more downtrend, and then that trend can last up to 44 days. So we can expect this retracement until 28th of February 2025. And then after the maximum duration of a T+5, we can expect a bounce back to the upside. The next company in focus is Nestle. So on Nestle, according to the last analysis that I issued, I was flagging up the possibilities that from this top we could have had the beginning of something new. As far as this law was not broken down. So in the last analysis, we were around this period, and here I was saying that if this law wouldn't not be broken, that we could have had some chance to have a bounce to the upside. I was saying that because in the last 2 or 3 videos that I have done on the Swiss stocks, I was keep repeating the fact that this cycle here, this T+5 cycle, was a negative cycle, and therefore the duration until the minimum duration we could have expected downtrend. Okay, so if you look at this law here, it was done on the 26th of July 2024, and the duration at that time was of 90. it was 100 bars. So I was flagging to investors, traders, whoever, that we could have had prosecution of the downtrend until a minimum duration of a T plus 5, which is 189 days. If you look at the chart, this is exactly what happened. And when there was this low here, I was saying that the minimum time to complete a T plus 5 was reached. And actually, the time from this low here to this low here is 205 bars. So in that case, we had the minimum duration to complete a T plus 5. Now, thanks to the earnings release, here we have the beginning of something new. And this something new, this new cycle, is basically detached from this structure. Okay. Can we say at the moment that this from this low we have a reversal? So we have at least a short-term reversal trend. The answer is yes. So we have a short-term trend reversal, but in order to have a new T plus 5 here, okay, in order to have a new cycle, a wide cycle that is a yearly cycle, we have to go higher the stop. As far as we do not go higher the stop, we might have the situation in which from this low here we have a T plus 4, but technically speaking, the high frequency trading system can also pull the price back down again. So you need to be aware that we are not out of the condition in which we might have a double bottom, okay? Because if this is just a T plus 4 and this thing is attached to this T plus 5, despite here we have a significant short-term reversal trend, then we can go lower this low, okay? So we are seeing some sign of strength, but in order to have a confirmation that from this top here, this low here, we have a new T plus 5, and we can avoid the situation in which the price will return back to the absolute lows, we need to go over this. And this price level is set at 86.86 Swiss francs. Okay, this is the key message. The second key message is that given that we have had a good reaction to the upside after the earning release, what can happen then? And the answer is we have to gauge the upward cycles. So from this top here, we have the T plus 5 yearly upward cycle that so far has reached a total duration of 174 days. If we look at smaller cycles, from this top here to this top here, we have 111 bars. And from this top here to this top here, we have at the moment 9 bars. So first of all, we have to flag the possibility that from this top here, we have the beginning of a T plus 1 slash T plus 2. So we have 8 days. So we expect beginning of next week another red candle, but then we will have to return back to the absolute tops because from this top here, at least we have a T plus 1. The return back to the absolute tops will happen in a time range. If here we have the beginning of a weekly cycle in a time range that is between 6 to 11 days. So the return to the absolute tops will be reached by Monday, 24 February up to at most 11 days, 3 March 2025. And of course, the first target will be the moving average 200. Okay, so here is what I'm expecting from Nestle beginning of next week. So a bit more retracement, but then return back to the absolute tops because here we have a T plus 1 that is positive. Situation will be to the upside further if from this top here we have a T+2. Now, technically speaking, considering the number of bars that are below that top, that are 8, so technically speaking, here we might have also T+2. And the T+2 has a duration between 24 and 44 bars. So it means that the price of Nestle can proceed to the upside at least until Wednesday, 5th of March 2025. So this will be the best case scenario. What I have just said before, so with the duration between end of February and beginning of March, are more for a conservative scenario. It's more for the short-term trend. But here we have sign of reversal. For mid-long-term reversal, we have to wait that the price will go over this top situation that is not there at the moment. So sign of short-term reversal, that's okay, but be careful. I wouldn't say not next week, but beginning of March, because the beginning of March can, by beginning of March, the market can give us additional information whether, especially this is a bi-weekly or monthly cycle. Okay. So that's the situation we have on Nestle, and we can further proceed with the next one. On Swisslife, according to the last analysis here, we were saying that if the stop would have been broken, we could have continued to proceed to the upside. So analysis correct, and now we have to gauge the time. So from this top here until the candle that we had on Wednesday, we have 25 bars. So from this top, potentially, considering yesterday's candle and today candle, we might have the beginning of something new. Okay, so here I put on desktop potentially the beginning of a T+1, T+2 upward cycle, because we have reached already a duration in which a new T+2 monthly cycle can be developed. Also here we are a bit in an overbought situation. So these are already indication that we might have the beginning of something new. Hence, for the next week, we have to be careful for a potential retracement. This retracement will allow to develop a new cycle. Depending on the number of candles that we will spend lower the stop, um, we will assign the upward cycle correctly. So the more the candles will be lower this low, the wider the cycle will be. And if we gauge the total duration from this top here until this top, so the top that was done on the 12th of February, we have 62 bars. So here potentially we might have a retracement to start what? To start a T+3. And if we start a T+3, well, we have to spend at least a couple of weeks, if not more, lower this low. So here you have to be careful from next week. Okay. If we gauge the duration in terms of downward cycles, here we have the closing of the first T+2, because here we have the tail. This tail, the deep of this tail is enough to have the closing of a T+2. And so here I can update the chart accordingly. So we have a new monthly cycle from this low, and we have to be careful, because if this retracement will go lower this low, then we will have a T+2 cycle that will turn into a negative one. And negative means that we will have a situation of this kind. Of course, we are not there yet. So for the next week or next 2 weeks, you have to be careful to this retracement. but this is a law that you have to keep in mind, or you have to put an alarm, because this is our checkpoint for further downtrend eventually, if this will be prolonged in the next 2 weeks. And this low is at 746.6 Swiss franc. Considering that here we have a T plus 4, though, we might have the situation in which we have the first T plus 3, then another T plus 3, and then a return back to the absolute tops all-time high. Because here we have more than enough time to have a T plus 4. But if you want to be conservative, then you can consider this one as a T plus 3. Therefore, you have to focus on this retracement. If we are not going lower this low, then in case of a bounce back to the upside, we will have a situation in which we have a 6-month cycle made of a first 3-month cycle and a second cycle, 3-month cycle like this. Okay, so on Swiss Life, just be a little bit careful for the next 2 weeks, and of course, keep monitoring this low. On UBS, according to the last video analysis, I was foreseeing more uptrend, and this is exactly what happened. Of course, we don't do video analysis every day, but at the time of the earning release, we have seen this candle, which is an engulfish bearish. Okay, so now we have to gauge the duration. Why did we have such candle to the downside? It's just because the earning release was not like the analysts were expecting. Potentially, yes. But if we look at the data here, we have 168 bars. And here we definitely, we are seeing definitely the beginning of something that is at the moment a T plus 3, but even a T plus 4. 168 bars actually is close to the maximum duration, or it's basically the maximum duration of a T plus 4. So is this something that has happened for a random case? I leave you to say. So here, let's update the chart, and we can put a T plus 4 upward cycle with a question mark. Okay. Um, For a T plus 4 upward cycle, you know that we cannot go back to the absolute top at least for a month, for an entire month. So do not expect to return immediately to this top before end of March, at least, because we cannot stay lower that top even for the entire month of March, April, and even May. Okay. But the beauty of this thing is that, or the beauty of the methodology is that we know that this is a temporary interaction of a trend that is needs to go to all-time highs, because here we have a T plus 5 upward cycle that is positive. And this T plus 5 cycle that is positive has reached 169 bars. Okay. But 169 bars, given that this interruption is not enough, because we would have needed other 20, roughly 20 days, 20 days in order to close the T plus 5. But here we don't have the minimum duration. So we need to return back to the absolute top. Once we will return back to this absolute top that was done with this candle, the time of the earning release on the 4th of February 2025 at 32.88 Swiss francs, in that case, we will have the minimum and sufficient condition to close at T plus 5. So our key message is that this retracement can be used to dots, dots, dots. I'm not going to give you any advice, but given the setup, you can infer what I wanted to say. So gauging here the total duration, here we have potentially the closing of a T plus 2, and now we are on the second monthly cycle of this 3 months cycle. So In other words, we have the completion of the first t plus 2, and now we have on a second t plus 2. Now here the price can be at a steady state or can further go lower. We don't know it. But for sure, do not expect to return back to this top immediately. So it's highly improbable that we will see a return back to the absolute tops by end of the next month. This means end of March. Okay, so you can then be aware of the situation and manage correctly your positions, okay, whether they are short or long. Of course, on the short term, we can apply the cycle analysis with lower duration, like t minus 1, t minus 2, t minus 3, etc. But these are more for the intraday operations. Okay, so that's the situation we have of UBS. In the last analysis that I issued on Swisscom, I was flagging these two swings. One was a top and one was a low. So we have gone over this top, and therefore we have had a monthly cycle that was a positive cycle. Now, if we gauge the total duration of that cycle, we will find out that that cycle lasted 40 bars. So we have a situation in which we have, from this yearly upward cycle, we had a first t plus 2 and a second t plus 2. First monthly cycle, second monthly cycle, total duration of a wider cycle, and you can imagine the grade. So here we have 75 bars. From this top here, we have the beginning of a t plus 3. Okay, and by definition, t plus 3 needs to have at least a couple of weeks lower to this top in order to develop the cycle. And as you can see here, we have had already a good retracement. We went lower this swing, we went lower this swing. So we have already one of the two conditions to have to define this top as a t plus 3. What do we need on top? We need time. Okay, but now the thing is that once we have solved the question or the situation related to the upward cycles, we have to see the downward cycles. So this swing is an important one because from this low here, we have the beginning of a t plus 3. Okay, so this is not a t plus 2 anymore because we have a lot of candles here that define the beginning of a t plus 3. We have even eventually the duration for a t plus 4. Okay, so but let's consider this one as a t plus 3. The duration that we have at the moment is 35 bars. Okay, so here we have a duration that is close to a duration of a monthly cycle. The thing is, if we will continue to go further down and we will go lower this low at 494.6 Swiss francs, then we will have a condition in which a t plus 3 will turn into a negative one. So we will have more room to proceed to the downtrend. And you have to be really careful of this situation, okay? But as far as we are not reaching this point, this condition is not there yet, okay? What I can say is that here, in the last 2 weeks, we have had different weekly cycles. So it was even a period of high volatility because, as you can see here, we have had a good push to the upside, then return to the absolute lows. Here we have had an explosion to the upside and then return back to the absolute lows in a little time. And now with this cycle, we have a duration of 7 bars. So 7 bars is already enough to close a weekly cycle. But considering this candle here, we might have for the beginning of next week more room for the downside. Okay, neither this low nor this low are T+2. Okay, but be careful, because if we reach this level, then we will have some further room to the downside. Okay, so be careful for the beginning of next week. We still have room for the downside. Then by mid of next week, we will have a bounce to begin a to begin another weekly cycle. But if this bounce will not be consistent enough and we will return back to this absolute lows, keep into consideration that we can have more days to proceed to the downside. Okay, so that's the situation I see at the moment. So be careful with Swisscom so that you can manage your position, whether they are long or short. Talking about Geberit, I was flagging in the last analysis that the possibility to continue this shorter-term downtrend. So with this low here, made on the 16th of January 2025, we have had a T+3 downward cycle that lasted 54 bars. So we have had the time to close the T+3 and begin something new. Of course, here I was flagging the possibility to proceed to the downside, and with this low, we did not broke up this low, because as you know, the 3-month cycle can last between 48 to 89 days. So 54 days was enough, but here we could have had the possibility to further push the price to the downside. Okay, this did not happen, but instead we had a bounce back to the upside like this. Okay, so from what we can say is that from this low here, we have a new cycle that is not just a weekly cycle, but it's definitely, for the time being, a T+2. Now, here we have to zoom a little bit back, and we have to consider that this low is the beginning of a T+5. And if we now gauge the duration, we have 304 bars. 304 bars is basically close to a maximum duration of a T+5. So from this low here, potentially, we might see the beginning of a new T+5. What does it mean? It means that despite the earning release, we have really little probabilities to return back to this low. But instead, we might have more possibilities to further proceed to the upside, because we need a certain amount of candles over this low to develop the T+5. And the amount of candle that we need is 2 degrees less subcycle, which means that we need to have an amount of candle that is more than 48 bars. Okay, and we would need also ideally to go lower, higher this low, higher, sorry, this top. So we need to go higher, 555 Swiss francs. So this is the situation I see on Geberit. So potentially here we might have a new T+5. It's not, I cannot say it yet because we need time, but since we are trying also to go over the moving average 200, and since we have broken, for example, this price checkpoint, then the next target will be to basically to go higher, 555 as said. Before going to that point, though, we need to take into consideration the upward cycles. So given that with today's candle we have 40 bars, then next week, as said also for other stock, we might see short-term downtrend. Short-term downtrend means that we can retrace for a week, for the entire next week, or maybe even 2 weeks, to start a new upward cycle that might be a T+2, like for example in this case, or like in this case. And you see, or like in this case, and you see that to begin a T+2, we need a certain number of candles that are pushing further down, as like D here, as like here. Okay, so this retracement can last at least a week, but it might be more. Okay, so be careful then over the short term, and I will leave intentionally the arrows so that you can check, if you wish, next videos, what I was saying and what the situation is. Okay, at least we need to start a T plus a weekly cycle, but can be also T+1 or T+2. So be careful about the intensity of this retracement. Okay, ideally we can also go to 517 Swiss francs to close this gap up, but then be careful next week. And last but not least, here I confirm the development of a 6 months upward cycle. So we lead to the conclusion of this video with the last company focus, which is ABB. The chart of ABB is particularly interesting because in the last analysis, I said that this swing that was made on the 15th of July 2024 was an important checkpoint to allow the rally to further continue to the upside. And why that? Because this top represents the beginning of a T+5 yearly upward cycle. And thanks to these two candles here, we broke up this top. And therefore, here we have a condition in which this T+5 has turned into a positive one. And if we gauge the total duration, we have from top to top just 142 bars. So here we have a condition that is pretty similar to Roche. And thanks to our methodology, we can foresee that the price can keep rallying or keep going up until at least 189 bars. And 189 bars means that we can proceed to the upside until Tuesday, 24 April. Okay, at least, if not more. Okay, so that is the situation we have on ABB, and I guess this is a valuable information that you can find just here on this YouTube channel. In terms of short term, here we have potentially the beginning of a T+3 that has done a first T+2, and then here we have we are on a second T+2. It's also true that considering such retracement, here potentially we have rather than a T+3, a T+2, and from this top here, eventually the beginning of the T+3. At the moment, I cannot say it with with certainty because we don't have enough candles below this top. But in over the midterm, this is not going to change too much because we already know that we will return back to this top that is at 53.54 Swiss francs. Okay, so I'm just flagging this up because potentially here we have to change the segmentation, but for the time being, I will keep it as it is. Okay, so that's the situation we have on ABB. As I said, mid-term uptrend. Here we have to check eventually this low in case they want to return back to the to the area are at 49.51 Swiss francs. Considering that here we have the closing of T+2, here we have the minimum duration 25 bars. So here I put a question mark because it's true that we can have the beginning of the monthly cycle with this candle that was done on the 10th of February, but they still have time. I mean, HFT algorithms, they still have time to eventually stretch this so far positive downward cycle further next week. So be careful. In fact, next week, in case we have a further downtrend, because it might belong still to this downward cycle here, okay? Especially if we go lower, this low, as said, at 49.51 Swiss francs. Okay, so we have finished. I hope this video has given you a lot of insights and information. So if you want, you can follow us by clicking the subscribe button. And I wish you a pleasant end of the day. Thanks for watching and see you to the next episode.